is that model. And at this point, the definition does not include charter schools.
Can I make a really brief answer to this?
Sure, just a second.
Okay.
On the other hand, there are hundreds of Waldorf charter schools all over the United States that are opening all over. And so when I go to summer training, half of my colleagues are teaching in charter schools. And so there's a very lively conversation about what does that mean and how do we figure out some common ground there and work with that. So it's a big challenge.
Watershed High School started out as a Waldorf private high school and ended up financially faced with a dilemma that was not going to be viable. Families that had paid for their kids from K through 8 in private school, some of them could afford to continue in private school and were tending to go to Blake, Minnehaha Academy, St. Paul Academy. A lot of them simply couldn't continue paying for that and facing the prospect of college. And we ended up, as a school, about the time that I started teaching there, and Johanna was still there, addressing the issue and deciding to become a charter school. Ironically, the executive director of the accrediting organization of Waldorf School sent her 2 children to Watershed High School. And Johanna taught there. In fact, all sorts of Waldorf teachers taught there. All sorts of Waldorf kids went there. We are officially not a Waldorf school. We are a school who describes itself as having Waldorfian roots. And we certainly procedurally have many, we have adopted many of the procedure things. But the dilemma is that the state licensed schools have another set of hoops you got to jump through. And in some cases, the state hoops are simply inconsistent with the Waldorf doctrinaire hoops. And we haven't reconciled it. In the meantime, we're trying to just, my final opinion on this is that what we offer is we are a small school that sees the human being in every student. And that's what we're, and that views the issue of motivation as one in which if the student can get engaged in his work and know that he is loved and know that he will be supported, then that student can do wonderful things, even if that student arrived at our school damaged. And many, many of our kids arrive at our school profoundly damaged because the undamaged kids stay where they are. It's the damaged kids who show up. And you know what? It's okay with me because I'm damaged. And tomorrow night I'm speaking at Hazelden, which I do regularly because I'm an alcoholic. And I'm one of the regular speakers in the auditorium. But I have had plenty of damage. And the good news is one can transform that damage into being something of use. And whether the kid came from a Waldorf school or came from South, the kid still needs to be loved. And still needs to grow up and have us there walking with them as they mature and develop. I have a lot of respect for the Steiner tradition, and frankly the Maria Montessori tradition, of recognizing that development means different kids should be taught different topics in different ways, but they should always be engaged by themselves having said, I want to know about this.
Well, I just wanted to make, I'm trying desperately to make this into a question, but we're a little over time anyway, so maybe you can just observe on my observation. But one of the reasons I was interested in putting this panel together was to see if there were common threads through these 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 different philosophies. And and what I see, Pat, you brought one up, in that there's a certain level of teacher engagement that's in those schools. The other two I see is that you're trying to look at the whole child, and that student interest should be the motivation for learning, and that and I guess along with looking at the whole child, looking at students as individuals, and as having ownership. And I just find that really interesting. I didn't know what I was.
Can I add one more, because just as you were speaking again,
Yeah.
the threat of being a human being, that to discover our common humanity and to act upon that is just vital. Larry just spent 2 years creating, we use timelines in our environmental audit. He created a timeline of humanity for the last 40 these kids are jumping on because it's all the common threads, not all the wars and the differences. And so when you're trying to put that together and find the common threads, I like that. And I would bring your point about the human, these kids understanding that that's what we have in common.
Well,
I'm sorry, I just want
Go
to say,
ahead.
you guys, in Montessori schools and Waldorf schools, you still need to meet the standards, right? I mean, take this, the NCAs and all of these.
Well, this is exactly, I think this is the question between private versus charter. Charter schools do, private schools do not.
Okay.
So Ellen and I have to meet them. They don't have to.
Well, at the high school though,
No, great.
Well,
Great
Great River is a charter school.
yeah,
Right.
so they have to.
But on the other hand, you know, because I do consultation with Montessori schools all over and adolescent programs, there are standards that have to be met within your
Yes.
organization. That's why I have to go out every 3 years to every school. Obviously, not just me, there's a whole cadre of us. So that they meet these standards and they're held. So we're not without standards.
Exactly.
No, of course not.
I know we want to ask one more question, and please feel free to do that. I have to go to the next session, which is starting in 10 minutes, so I can help the speaker. But I did want to thank, and at least give you guys a round of applause. Really, really appreciate the conversation. It's fascinating.
Thank you so much.
That's right.
I have to teach them too.
And our experience.
If you're interested in Waldorf curriculum, there's a website that's run by OSNA, that's our association, it's just whywaldorfworks.org. And I actually went through it at whywaldorfworks.org. There's interesting information there, and it's maybe not as easy to find information about Waldorf education. It's not quite as well known as Montessori education. So.
I was just wondering why charter schools don't get as much money as public schools.
It's politics. It's the short answer. The other real answer here is that the charter school movement has not been aggressive enough in saying that, let me be blunt, I blame the DFL and I blame Matt Intensive particularly. The lie out there is that charter schools have eviscerated, have damaged Minneapolis public schools, have damaged St. Paul public schools. The lie is that somehow we have caused their problems, and it's not true. And no one is prepared to stand up and call these guys liars, but I am. Matt Intensive is a liar. Is my
So it's
personal
the
opinion.
state government that decides who
They
gets the
say
money?
that they're giving us the same amount of money, but they're not. And we do not have local taxing power because we are not a geographically based district.
Right.
And there is a lot of fear out there that as soon as there are choices,
Right.
that the core public schools will.
The regular geographically based districts are scared to death of the charter school movement. And I understand that the Minneapolis district had 50,000 students 15 years ago. They got 32,000 this year. It's extraordinarily hard to programmatically run stuff. On the other hand, less than half their employees are in the classroom. And all but 2 of our employees are in the classroom. I am my own janitor. I serve the lunch.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, this is not exaggeration. This is just truth.
And as a principal of a charter school, are you seeing some of the same issues? Is that?
Yeah, we always say that the employees in our school do so many things, though. Serve green beans and sweep the floor. And,
But it's amazing the support that you guys receive from the parents, I guess. My son was a charter school that this year we had to raise $30,000 for the after-school programs.
Yes.
It was incredible. All the parents raised the money, and we raised more than $30,000. So
Well
it's
done.
like
Yeah.
But
I require my son.
it's difficult, and I realize I stated maybe too aggressively, but we've been such nanny-nannies that we've allowed ourselves, I thought until I looked at the website that there was a 10 or 20% difference, not a 2.5 times difference. And $8,500 to $20,000 is 2.5 times. They ain't right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.